Hi, everybody. We're just going to give it 2 minutes as we always do, let people get here from their last meetings, and then we'll get started. Thank you. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining. We're going to get underway here. This is our fun AI webinar. It's actually our second one, but this is actually the more fun one because as of today, Bacon customers can get this version that has AI in it, or I should say the AI chatbot. So it's called AI for your endpoints, Expedite Workflows with Bacon Unlimited's ChatBLT feature. All right, what does that really mean? Well, we're going to get into that in a minute. Before we do, I'm just going to go over the agenda real quick here. We're going to do some introductions. Then we're going to just jump right into ChatBLT, just explain sort of the context of how it works inside the software. And then we're going to, for those who haven't seen Bacon before, we're going to do a high-level overview of the product. Before we jump into any of that, I'll do some housekeeping and do an overview, sort of a 50,000-foot view of what Bacon is and what it's trying to achieve. But Dave will actually show the full product after we jump into ChatBLT and talk about how it really makes things a lot easier. So with that, Dave, why don't we jump into introductions? My name is John Marcato. I'm the CTO and co-founder of Bacon Unlimited. And joining me today is Dave Adekoya, one of our senior engineers, and as I always like to state, the best demo guy I know. So thanks for joining me, Dave.
As always, thanks for having me.
Indeed. I think, why don't we jump through some housekeeping real quick, and for those who haven't been on our webinars before, we do like to give you things. We're just that nice. So we do have a Bacon t-shirt that is awaiting all of those who finish the survey at the end. We do appreciate those very much. They help us improve on these. I have yet to see someone say that they hate t-shirts and we should give away mugs or pens, but you know what, feel free. The other thing is that if you haven't used GoToWebinar before, there is a questions section. We do keep that open and answer that throughout the webinar. And I see there's already a question up there. Someone asked if they're early. That was probably earlier, so you were early, but now you're not. So that's the good news. With that, the other thing about GoToWebinar is we're going to launch a couple of polls in a minute or so here. And you don't have to do anything except for watch what pops up on the screen and answer. They're real easy. Yes, no questions, and there's only 2 of them, so don't worry there. And the last thing is we have a YouTube channel. So if you don't get everything you want today, we do have our Bacon Bits videos, and they are available on our YouTube page. We have lots of them up there, over 100. We usually release one about once a week or so like that. So we've been doing that for a long time, and we're going to keep doing that. And certainly if there's some up there that you think we should have that we don't, we always open to that, to hearing what you guys think. But nonetheless, they are up there, and they can be great for learning more about the product if you don't have it yet, or learning how to do specific things, because they're nice short videos that tell you specifically how to solve a specific problem. So with that, we're going to do some polls. Lane, if you would be so kind as to launch our first poll. There it is. Do you use AI in your daily work? I know I do. I'm using a few different platforms right now, and I just got Microsoft Copilot today, which is embedded into my Office 365 app, so that should be fun to play with. We'll see how good a job they've done. I literally haven't even got to open yet. I just got it like 10 minutes ago. So we'll be doing that post-webinar. But I do think that there's a lot of AI advancements coming that are going to help a lot of little aspects of our day-to-day work, and hopefully it doesn't take over the world and terminate us, but we'll see. So as we get all of these answers in here, we'll see how many people kind of fit for this one. Looks like, wow, less than I thought. Dave and I were thinking it was going to be about 50-50, but it looks like
Oh, yeah.
a lot of people are still not using it. So those who have Bacon that are on that no list, you're soon going to be on the yes list. And for those who don't have Bacon, you better get it so you can get some AI going. Let's do the second poll, Lane. All right, do you use scripting or automation in your environment? This one, I think I'm going to be closer on the margins with this one, but we'll see what happens. I'm already seeing some hot numbers in the yes category. Let's see where it comes up. And what's interesting, and I don't know, maybe we could ask a more advanced poll in the future, is, how deep are your skills in this area? It looks like just under 90% of people use scripting and automation every day. And from talking to people in IT over the last 25 years, I would say that there's always a very variant skill with IT people, depending on what their particular role is and all of those things. Well, the intersection of AI and the ability to do scripting and automation is really where Bacon, and specifically ChatBLT, which is a new, completely inclusive feature. It's not like an add-on or a separate product or something like that. Is meant to make that easier and to make scripting and something that we have in the system called profiles a lot more accessible and easy to use and understand. So I'm going to just give a quick high level of what Bacon is for those who've never seen it before, just to talk about it, and then we'll jump into showing BLT, and then we'll show the rest of Bacon. So thanks everybody for joining and learning about Bacon. If you haven't before, I do recognize some of our customers on there, and thanks for joining as well. Thanks for sitting through these parts that you already know, but you can make fun of me later for my presentation. So at least you have that going for you. With that said, what is Bacon Unlimited? Well, it is an endpoint management platform. Some people call us a UEM because we do MDM and agent-based endpoint management in one. We do servers and workstations and Apple mobile devices. We do cover Mac OS, Windows, 8 flavors of business class Linux, and we support virtually all features are feature parity unless they sort of can't be. And that was one of the big goals. In the modern world, you can do that. It wasn't so easy 15, 20 years ago when most endpoint tools were kind of being made. So that's one of our big benefits. So we are a security-first company. We were thought up in the belly of another company that does a lot of IT security consulting. And one of the things we found was a lot of tools did not have the security capabilities or security level. And we really wanted to make sure we started from the ground up with the modern world security needs in mind. So there's more and more exciting features coming in that area as well. We will be have a booth this year at RSA, and we're going to be announcing some amazing new capabilities with mitigating risk and vulnerabilities and so on and so forth. So with that, what else do we do? Well, or why do we do it, right? Bacon is really, we kind of came up with a simple concept: visibility, control, and automation, right? And each one is dependent on the prior. So in order for an endpoint management system, you have to have really good visibility, and you can't have really good visibility unless it's real-time visibility, because data from an hour ago or a day ago or whatever is not all that valuable. So you need to have robust data about your systems. That's all the software that's installed and all the infrastructure that's inside the computer, probably not the right word there, but all of the technology that's inside the chips and how much memory they have and the serial number and lots of other little things. And it's really, really important to understand the health of them as well. So we have visibility into the health of the system and a full monitoring system to go with it. So we know, if systems are running out of RAM or hot on CPU or low on disk space, certain services aren't running, the list goes on and on. And the idea there is that you kind of always know how things are doing and what they're doing. And because we connect from anywhere securely, every single device checks in with Bacon roughly every 15 seconds. And that means that we always kind of know what's going on and can always deal with anything that comes in. And that kind of leads me to the control part. So control means that you have lots and lots of tools in the tool belt in terms of how you can interact with those systems. So built in, we have remoting features. You can get to the CLI, the disk system, and of course the screen. So you can have a great experience with your end users from a one-to-one point of view, like when, sort of like a help desk ticket or something like that. But you can also do things without having to interfere with them, which can be really, really helpful as well. So it's a pretty full tool set there. But then, the bigger control functions are the ability to patch one-to-many, right? Install software one-to-many, and for these things to be very easy and accessible to do. So patching in Bacon is just very, very simple, and deploying software, even multi-file complex software, is much, much easier than older platforms. It doesn't require any compilation, so we can bundle software without having to change any of the files or anything like that. So some really, really nice features there. And then that kind of leads me to the last one, which is automation. And you can't have automation unless you have control, and you can't have control unless you have visibility. So those things are in the right order in my mind. And automation really means that all these control functions that we can do, where there's a benefit of having automation, and there are most of them do have some benefit from automation, we have that, right? So the ability to set things and know that they are going to change and be the way you want. The example I always give is if you're familiar with group policy from Microsoft, it only works on Microsoft, and you don't actually ever know in an easy way that the policy reached every machine. Kind of hope it does, and it does a pretty good job, but there's a bunch of environmental things that can stop that from happening. And then you might have machines that don't have a critical security policy in place. So we consider that to be unacceptable. And so one of the things that we wanted to make sure that we could do is not just control group policies, but be able to control any setting on any machine, and not just in Windows. So on Windows, Macs, Linux, you can set the firewall rules. In Windows, you can change registry keys and GPOs. You can set the background picture on any computer, any config file on Mac or Linux. All of these things are flexible and we have the ability to manipulate them no matter where your machines are from one central Bacon console. So that's kind of the vision of it. It's been going really, really well, but we've wanted to make it easier and easier and more feature-rich every day. And so one of the things that we've been able to do is take advantage of the new capabilities in artificial intelligence. We did show the sort of first edition of that a couple months back, and one of the things we realized at the time was when we all sort of attacked it every which way, it did enough glitchy things that we decided to wait until this latest version of 4.5 to release it finally. So you can now get it as of today. If you are a Bacon customer, you can get this version right now. So what Dave's going to show you here in a second is real world stuff. You can do exactly the same kinds of things. What I will tell you is it's an early feature, and it is built on top of the GPT engine. So for those of you who are familiar with things like ChatGPT or all the Copilot technology that's coming out from Microsoft, we're using the same tech because it's the best AI in the business. But what we've done is we've been able to vectorize our own information and train it specially to work specifically with our needs, right? So it knows how to help you in Bacon. It knows our entire admin guide. It knows how to write scripts. It knows how to make all of these little states that are the underpinning elements of profiles. So you can ask it all these questions, and just like if you use ChatGPT, even with the very latest model, which is what we're using, you will find little glitches where sometimes it doesn't give a perfect answer, but 99% of the time it does. And that's a really fun and exciting thing because you can just get a tremendous amount more work done with that. So I think without further ado, Dave, if you're ready, I'd love to have you show it off and give people a taste of some of the neat things that you can do. It's obviously kind of an endless supply of things you can do, but we'll give some examples here and kind of get people familiarized. You feeling ready?
Yeah, I'm all set.
All right. Well, I'm excited. The floor is yours.
Awesome. So we're going to go over to our demo server here. For anybody new to Bacon, so we're going to go through ChatBLT first, and then we're going to do our standard walkthrough of the product. I will pause at certain points to explain different Bacon concepts for those that aren't aware, but let's go ahead and get started. So I'm on the endpoints table. On all the screens in Bacon, you're now able to pull up ChatBLT here. You can go like slide it up, or I can just click this arrow. That'll cover the full screen. I already have my chat here. So for those of you not familiar with these language models, you're able to type in any kind of questions or messages here, hit enter or click send, and then it's going to go process it and then return back with information. And it's one of those things that seeing it today, I wouldn't have believed this was possible 5 years ago. It's kind of crazy. So I have a list of questions here I'm going to ask it. I'm kind of just copy and pasting for the sake of not making any typos. And you're going to kind of see how this works and how you interact with it on a daily basis. So first off, we're going to start with the question, what is Bacon used for? So how this works is it's going to process my query and then it's going to return back the answer. And so let's see what it has here. It says Bacon is an endpoint management solution. It's used to automate the management of software infrastructure and to orchestrate the execution of tasks on servers. And it kind of continues on from there, which you are free to read. I won't grab the entire paragraph, but very simple question, although it's not super practical unless you have Bacon and have no idea why you have Bacon. Pretty unlikely. What I'd like to do instead is we're going to start going through some different use cases. So one of the most common things that we on the support side are doing is helping people write states and profiles. In Bacon, we have states, like John said, they're similar to GPOs in that a state's a configuration you write in YAML format, and then you can put this in a profile and push it out to a group of machines. So that's good for setting registry keys, local GPOs, configuring firewalls, installing software. It's the automation engine for Bacon. But the one thing is there is a bit of a learning curve to it. There's a little bit of documentation you have to read, some testing you have to do. And what I've found is that AI does get you really close, if not 100% there. And so I've started using this to write states, right? One of the best things about AI, as I ask this question, is it may give you ideas that you didn't previously have. And even if they're not implemented 100%, the term usefully wrong, which is kind of taken off in the AI community, does kind of make sense, or at least gives you ideas of implementation. So here I'm asking it to write a salt state for me to install Chrome on Mac OS using a .pkg installer. So let's say I uploaded my .pkg to Bacon and I just want some way to install it. So it comes back with our answer here. So just as an eyeball, again, those of you who write states, you might see this. This looks pretty good, actually. So it uses, the names the function Chrome, it has package.installed, seems about right. It references a source for Chrome. And then here it's doing this salt link. How this works for those that are not familiar is you can upload files to Bacon's file repository over here. And then each of those files has an internal URL that you can use to reference whenever you write states. So in this case, the machine will see this, it'll pull it from your Bacon server and put it on the machine, and you're good to go. It'll install it for you. So moving on next, I want to try something a little bit more complex. So we have it write a state of just hey, do this one thing. But what if we give it a more complex action? Let's say I wanted to write a state to install something and then have it make a change on the machine. So here, I'm going to ask it to write a salt state to install SNMP on Linux. And then I want to also adjust the firewall to allow SNMP inbound from any IP. And so what you're going to see here is we send the command off, and then it's going to wait a couple bit or a couple, let's say, seconds, and then return back. So it's just a bit, not too bad. But I have noticed that the wait time does scale with the response it gives you. So more complex stuff will take a little bit longer. Now, as we're waiting for this, let me grab some questions here. So what is Salt? Salt's kind of like the underlying engine that we're running everything through. It's a Salt project if you want to look that up. Actually, John grabbed that question for me. Thank you. And then I'll grab that credits use question once we ask our next thing here. So what we're looking at here is this is what happens when you use AI. Sometimes it's not going to get the answer 100% right. I'm seeing here it says like UFW allow SNMP. It's got the skeleton of what we're looking for. But because it's AI, you might get back a different answer each time you ask a question. So I'm going to actually give it the same question again and see if it can generate a better answer for me. Because here the package install is not really helpful, and the UFW part's not super helpful because it's not actually installing those for us. So we'll let this kind of query. And while we wait, so the credits used here, we're providing a service and it's going through the GPT-4 model, the GPT-4 engine, but we've done some additional training to it specifically for how Bacon works and for how to write salt states and stuff like that. However, it is a service that we are kind of, footing the bill for somewhat. So the credits are what's allotted to you on like an organizational level. And then we can kind of discuss if you need more credits or anything like that as an additional conversation. But for right now, we do have a credit limit just to make sure that someone's not just going absolutely ham all day long and racking up a massive bill. All right, so second attempt, this looks a lot better. So now you can see like the difference here. I can install SNMP, that's fantastic, and install UFW, that looks good too. And then lastly, it wants to allow 161 through the firewall, which is the port that we need. So this is actually like copy and pasteable. We could take this, chuck it into a state, and push it out. I always recommend testing stuff, especially if you get it from AI. It looks fantastic, but I always want to test it to make sure and then push it out. But I think you kind of see the utility here. This is stuff that we could all figure out if we had to. However, in the meantime, I'm able to fill time in a webinar. You might be able to answer some emails or work on another project as you ask the AI questions. And so you can use this as like a multitasking exercise because it's saving you a ton of just extra effort and research and looking stuff up. So next up, something Windows focused. I want to write a script to check if WinRM is configured on a Windows desktop computer. I find that giving the AI little like hints here as to like the context of what I'm looking for or where I want to run it results in a much higher chance of getting a quality script back or a quality response back. So we'll kind of let this load for us. All right, so here's a basic PowerShell script. So for those of you who are PowerShell gurus, this looks pretty good to me. So it has get service WinRM, checks if it's running, will tell you an output if it is or not. And then down here, it runs this command. This again is like my favorite thing about AI is you can figure this out, but you're gonna have to go read Microsoft documentation if you're not familiar with like how WinRM like listeners work. I'm not, so this kind of saves me some time there. And so now I can test this on like a known good configuration and then push it out and get all of my responses back. And again, this is going to be fantastic for those of you who don't script often, or if you're kind of like an intermediary step where you can definitely like edit existing scripts, but getting them started is a little bit difficult. I was definitely there years ago, so I get that. This kind of fills that gap for you and can help advance your knowledge because you're able to see how it wrote stuff, test it out, and then start using these in your own implementations. So next up, I want to try something like having a PowerShell script write a text file in every user's documents folder. So for this, it has to understand how the Windows file system works. It has to understand how to write files and all that kind of stuff. And so we're going to see if it's able to give me a reasonable implementation of just dropping a text file in everyone's folder. And then you can, add, let's say, a desktop folder or maybe something in app data, right? We can expand if we need to. So here, it looks like it's going through user profiles. It's going to grab every folder inside the C users directory. That's what I would have done. Then it's going to, for each profile in the user profiles, find the documents folder. Then it's going to make a new file. And then there you go. So yeah, this can then be edited with better file paths if you want, or kind of just use an implementation to do something for each user that's logged into this machine. Now, next up, I actually got this one from a customer. This is a fantastic idea where they had a script to run DISM, image repair, and then SFC. And that's a pretty common like help desk slash like desktop support action when we're dealing with just weird OS stuff in Windows. And so I love the idea of taking these very common things that we all do on a daily basis that should be consistent and making a script out of them. Right? I kind of had a job previously doing this as an automation engineer of making sure that if we're going to do something, we do it consistently and it's done the same way and like the same kind of quality every time with as little effort as possible. Excuse me. So that's what I'm aiming for here. I want it to run DISM image repair, and then follow up with an SFC scan now. All right, so starting image repair. So one thing to kind of note here is I said run DISM image repair, excuse me, but I didn't really tell it the parameters to use. This is kind of the neat thing about these models is they're training on all kinds of actual data. And so the same kind of commands, I don't know about you guys, I always run this one. It's like online, cleanup dash image, restore health. I type it in that order every time, even. It's been like years of just practice. So it picks up on that for me, which is fantastic. And then SFC slash scan now. So it's going to do the DISM, then it's going to check if it worked and then run SFC. Fantastic. Again, we always test before we put it in production, but this just visually looks pretty good. Last for example, I want to also give it like a scenario. So one thing you can do with AI models too is you can just talk to these things and ask them questions of like, I have this kind of issue going on. How would you fix it? Or what do you think the root cause is? I've copied error messages in here before and said like, hey, I got this error while running a script. Why? Or, hey, here's the code that ran. Help me fix this error. You can do that. They're also context aware. So if I wanted to have them modify something, I could by saying, hey, I don't want it to say DISM. I want it to say pancakes. And then it'll go through and it'll rewrite the DISM output and just put pancakes. You can
I
be like
love
very
pancakes.
generalized. Me too. Huge fan. If I had to have one for breakfast, I'm picking pancakes. Yeah. So like that's the kind of the nice thing here is everything that you said in this single chat session, it's context aware. So you can also use this for iterating. John actually helped me out a lot whenever I first started using ChatGPT and other similar models was um, asking it a question, having it build something for you, and then telling it no, 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 and then having it rebuild with changes you've made. That actually is a really successful option. So it gets close, you tell, okay, that's good, but do this, change this, fix this, and it'll do that for you. All right, so here again, it looks like it gave me a script back, but it's not fully what I'm looking for. So there's certain things in here that are useful, right? This scenario is my user logs in with a temp profile, and I want to write a script to fix this and have them kind of return back to a normal profile. Now, from like a help desk angle, this is pretty common where we have to go through the registry, we have to delete like a dot back key, and we have to change some stuff here and there, but it's pretty formulaic. I usually look up a guide to do it because I don't remember the steps, but they're all kind of important. So that's something that I would like to have AI do for me or write a script for me so that I don't have to remember every single step every time. So in this case, it's not actually giving me the output I'm looking for. So it's possible I could kind of edit my words here, but it's getting pretty close. So it basically grabs an SID here. And this is the kind of stuff, again, I always point out AI knows better than me is this is going to work. It's going to take a username and give you the SID for it. I don't want to have to figure that out. It's just not really worth my time. You could, it just takes a lot. Next, this is where it stops being as helpful, unfortunately, where it's going to start to do some of the work, but this isn't typically how I solve it. I have had this model return back scripts to like go through the registry and rename folders and all this kind of stuff. That's kind of what I was looking for here. But again, with AI, it's going to be a little bit different each time. So you may have to flex your questions. Now, in addition to this, so we also have chat history, and that's kind of neat. So we've gone through this model a couple times to see what will come out. We've kind of put this through its paces, if you will. And so it's also able to remember different conversations you've had with it in the past, where you can go through and say, hey, I want to install 7-zip with bacon, or even like I did like a run through before of the different things it's going to come back with. So keep in mind that even though you're going through your different things with AI, you can also have it just like remember like different notes for you and configure stuff as well. So I really do like that kind of implementation. Oh yeah, here's actually one of the ones where it did give me the script I was looking for, at least this time around, where it goes through and modifies the registry. So you can kind of see that even if it's getting close, it gave us essentially most of what the script was up here, and it just didn't include the bottom part. So this still gets you pretty far. So in addition to this, you can use this for your automating of scripts. You can use it to kind of help you with language you're not super familiar with, as well as it's been trained on both our admin guide and kind of like product info. So you can also just ask it questions on how to achieve stuff in Bacon. And I think this really does a good job at bridging the gap between like an automation engineer and someone who has a task they need to get done. Because I love to automate stuff, but one of the biggest problems with that skill set is you might spend more time automating it than it takes to just do it 3 times. So this has really helped me get a lot of things automated on my side, because I can have the script run, maybe give it 5 minutes of attention, versus like 4 hours of me error checking and remaking stuff as we go. So John, that's basically what I wanted to show off for ChatBLT. Did you have any other questions or anything else you wanted to see?
I think one thing I just wanted to make sure we do is kind of recap, because the demoing this stuff goes fast, but that's actually sort of the point, right? So the first thing I notice, right, is whenever we do these kinds of sessions, even when we're not on a webinar, it's not as fast as using ChatGPT. There's a couple extra seconds of waiting, right? And part of the reason for that is that GPT is the highest speed stuff for the latest GPT goes to ChatGPT, their own chat product, right? Which is a great product. I recommend using it for all kinds of general use cases. The other part is that we have vectorized data that it refers to, so it may go back to GPT a few times before you're actually getting it. So you may see, 2 or 3 extra seconds, and on really bad days when GPT is just chugging along, it can even take 10, 15 seconds. So the good news is that the difference between waiting a few seconds or 10 seconds and spending 2 hours figuring out a complex script that this can do, if not 100%, 95% of the work on, it's really worth it, right? It's just a huge time saver to be able to do these things. And even people who are pretty good at scripting, they don't always remember every single little command and things like that, and the tool can help a lot. I think new Bacon users will probably just ask this a lot of questions about the product itself, like, what section do I manage this in? Like, maybe I need to, how would I set up third-party patching, right? How would I, check on antivirus that I've got the right antivirus, or nominate my antivirus so it's the only one I see? These are questions you can ask of ChatBLT. You're also welcome to read our manual. It is built into the software. Dave will show that in a little bit. But the point is that the whole idea here is to save you a lot of time. So Dave goes through this pretty quickly, which I love, and we could make lots more examples, especially if we do a one-on-one demo together. But it is a really, really powerful capability. The other thing I wanted to mention, besides the speed thing, is how it's being updated. So someone asked me on the webinar today, they've got 4.5.10, and this is on 4.5.11. So they're like, oh, I've got to upgrade Bacon again, kind of sentiment, and I totally get that. The good news, though, is that once you have it in the software, the actual ChatBLT engine lives in the cloud, just like our third-party patching does. So a lot of the fixes to these services that require our cloud services, they won't impact you based on your version. You won't have to just keep updating Bacon all the time. You'll be able to, wait and do it quarterly or every 6 months or whatever, and there'll still be fixes, coming in daily. Like, I don't know if anyone saw the CVE that was released today for Chrome, but if you are on anything lower than, Chrome 120 with the 255 at the end, I think it is, you're at risk of a fairly significant, like an 88 severity kind of risk, right? So in order to get that updated in our third-party patching, it automatically came in through AI that the newest version that came out last night was in there, but we have to go through our approval process. We did that today, and you can get that now, right? So those are the kinds of things that are more automated, and ChatBLT will be having lots of enhancements. We have code blocks now, but we don't have the auto save from the code block into the repository, as an example, for scripts. That's stuff that's on the short-term roadmap, and you'll just see it pop up one day in the tool. So just to give, yeah, just want to give people some context on that, and I'll talk about some more stuff that's coming in Bacon at the end here. But Dave, why don't you jump into the general overview, and we'll see if we have time to jump in any of that stuff at the end.
Absolutely. So let's kind of go back to the start of everything. We kind of started with AI. So this will just be a general walkthrough of Bacon. So we're looking at the overview page here. I want to explain the different widgets that we're seeing before we go on. So we have alert. Bacon is able to have custom configured alerts for things like, is a service running? Is a machine online? What kind of performance data am I seeing? Let's say a SQL server has 98% CPU utilization for 5 minutes. Trigger an alert like that. We also can see the endpoints that are online versus offline, along with if any have problems, though typically you won't see that, but it will show up as a little yellow indicator here. Then over on distribution, we can see what operating systems you're running in your environment. Keep in mind as we go through here, if you click on any of these, it's going to filter the table where it's pulling that data from. So it can be a handy way just to drill down and see where it's pulling these numbers. Next up, we can see patches. So how many packages or patches you have available depending on your OS will show up here. Then over on antivirus protection, we're able to see which machines are running versus not running AV. And how this works is we allow you to specify a service or services, and that's what contributes to this AV counter here. So let's say if you're using CrowdStrike, but you're doing a trial of Sentinel-1, you can select the CrowdStrike service, you can also select the Sentinel-1 service, and that'll contribute to this protected metric here. Then on another security focus, we have encrypted hard drives, and this allows you to see if your machines are running either BitLocker on Windows or FileVault on Mac OS. Next up, let's take a look at monitoring. So we have the ability to create these rules, of course, as well as we have these profile rules. So all of the configs in Bacon, or all the profiles in Bacon, I should say, create a profile rule. As John was saying before, GPO is okay, but it does not tell you if it actually ran or if it had any problems or errors, and that does drive me nuts as a Windows admin. On the profile side here, we're able to have a rule activate if this profile had to actually run on a machine, saying, let's say, your server cluster didn't have the proper firewall, so I had to set it for these 7 machines, that kind of thing. You can have the rules activate on profile applications so you can figure out, why did my configurations drift? Why aren't things working the way I expected, even though it's already been fixed by Bacon? If I kind of switch severity here, we can see the other rules that we've kind of created as individuals. So things like looking at CPU usage. We have direct API integration with Jira and Autotask, so we can always generate tickets and close tickets in those systems, as well as we have emails that we can send outbound to one or many addresses for other ticketing systems or alerting your groups. Over on alerts, this is where we're going to see our alerts in Bacon. These can be easily dismissed, along with anything you see in green here can be clicked on. So if I click here, it'll bring me to the endpoint. And if I click over here, it'll bring me to the rule that triggered it. We also have outage windows, so I always recommend using outages instead of ignoring your alerts. If you're going to take a server down or work on services, make sure you set an outage window so you're not training your team to just auto-close tickets because we know we don't have to worry about it. Always a kind of dangerous practice. We want to always act on alerts when they come in versus kind of getting numb to them. And then lastly, we have a knock dashboard. So this allows you to get a visual indicator of the health of your environment. As you can see here, most of mine are in critical or offline status, but you can also click on these to change how it filters. So I can see the devices that are online and which ones are healthy. And again, most things in Bacon can be interacted with. So if I click on one of these, it's going to bring me to that endpoint page. Next up, we have an endpoints table. So this shows you all the devices you have in Bacon. Right now, mine's filtered to just show the connected devices. And here we have different data points we're pulling back, like the IP address, we have serial number in here, the type of machine, as a server or workstation, and all these kind of different items here can be pulled into a table. So I can actually export this, as I can with most tables, into Excel by clicking on Actions and Export. Then over on the device side of things, so we have 8 different tiles up here, and as we click these, it's going to change the context of what we see below. So here we see very similar information, like we did in the table. Then over here we can see notes and tags. The tags are ones that you can either add from here or create, and of course notes are things you just type in. And this belongs to the device itself, so anybody who's looking at this, either it's me or John, will see the same tags and notes combination here. As I walk through here, we can see disk information. If I had encryption active, I would see a little lock icon above the C here. And if I had BitLocker running, I would, of course, be able to pull our recovery keys over here. For Windows, we're pulling these every hour. And for macOS, we're able to capture them on the initial encryption through MDM. Next, we can see the different NICs on this computer. We only have one, but we can see the IPv4 address, IPv6. Over in policies, if we had any profiles applied to this machine, we would see them here. Then we can see what groups it's a member of. In Bacon, we have two different kinds of groups. We have static groups and dynamic groups. Dynamic groups are going to allow you to use the previous endpoints table to set up different filters. Let's say to filter for online Windows machines that have that old version of Chrome or have a version of Chrome too low for us. And you can make a group of those machines and kind of work through getting them updated, push scripts to them and stuff like that. Over in available patches, here we can see what patches this machine has available. We're going to cover patching in just a moment when we look at the full table for all endpoints. Just keep in mind that any kind of patching we do, we could also replicate here for just one machine or do the same steps for 2,000 machines. Next, we have services. This shows you what services are running on this machine. We have the option of selecting this as AV, like I talked about before. This can be any service or any combination of services. So it's as flexible as you need. You don't have to worry about us like keeping a list up to date whenever AV vendors change service names or get acquired and stuff like that. And lastly, logs. So if we are running any jobs on this machine, we'd see the logs here, and we'd be able to go through and process those as need be. And before we get too far, we also want to take a look at the remote built in. So up here in the top right, we have a screen, a shell, and a file system remote. So these allow you to connect to the machine. Right? The user will get a little pop-up down here saying I've connected. I can just run this and like open admin prompts and do all the kind of like standard screen remote stuff. Right? I think we're fairly familiar with that. The nice thing here is that from the admin side, I don't have to install an extra client. And on the end user side, this is installed along with the agent, so we don't have to do anything extra there either. Next up, we have the shell. So this connects you to the backend shell of the system. And this runs as system in the case of Windows or root for the other OSs. And so you're able to go through here. So you can open up PowerShell, make variables, pull those back, and copy and paste. So it's a fully featured shell running as system, and this one isn't visible to the user. As well as we kind of point out every so often that you're able to also connect as that user and run things through their shell if you've got to do things as them, maybe for like an installer or moving files and stuff like that. Then we have file system. This allows you to connect to the backend file system to either upload, download files, or create folders, zip stuff, you name it. And so here we're able to, again, invisible to the user, manage the file system. So the shell and the file system here are kind of a good pair for one another as we get different tasks done. Next up, I want to skip over to patching, make sure we can see that a little bit. So I'm going to filter my patches by Windows OS. Just keep in mind this is cross-platform, and technically you could patch multiple operating systems at once, but I find a lot of us are at least pretty familiar with how Windows does their patching, so it's a pretty good middle ground to start talking about it. So here we're looking at the patches pulled back. So Bacon will query all the endpoints, figure out what patches they need, and then present us with a table. So we can click on this and see all the information, like what categories I have to install, the description if it needs a reboot. And so patching is super simple. We're going to select some patches up here, go to Actions and Install. Right from here, we'll know if we need to reboot or not. But down here on the install side, we'll only see the machines that need at least one of these patches. Fortunately, these are both offline. So we have different schedules that we can do. We can push it out right away. We can use run when connected to queue it in the system. So that's good for these offline guys because we're going to push it out and the job will wait for these two to check in and then push the patch out. Then we also have the option of doing a schedule time. So we can pick a time and a date. Okay, pretty simple. Or we can use relentless mode. And John, do you want to give a quick overview of how this works?
Sure. So relentless mode, as I've told the story, probably on numerous demos and so forth, was a feature that was thought up by a customer about little over 3 years ago. And they basically said, oh, we work on time windows, right? Like we have to get approved by management to do a patching and reboots on the weekend, right? We're going to be taking some servers offline that are critical and so on and so forth. So we sort of sat there and we're like, we should have thought of that, and great idea. And the other thing they mentioned, though, is sort of the sub part of the conversation was, yeah, and the tool that we used in the past, if you rebooted, you had to start a new patching job because it couldn't like pick up a job if there were multiple reboots required. So we thought that seems very antiquated and shouldn't be like that. So With relentless mode, you get two things. One is you get a start time, but also an end time, right? So that's the first part. So you can set any window you want, 4 minutes, 4 hours, 10 minutes, and 30 seconds. It doesn't matter what the amount of time is. It only matters what matters to you. So that part is very important. The second part is that the default down there where it says yes, reboot, if it is required, it's a very intelligent system. It's using the algorithm metadata from the update services. Microsoft's is actually quite good at this. Apple's a little bit less so, but it works most of the time now on most of their updates. And Linux, all the business class operating systems are very, very good at it. So what does it mean? Well, it means that when you go and run this job, let's say you've got 30 patches, and in order to get through them, the best way to do it is to install these 5 patches together, then reboot, then this one and reboot, and then the rest, and then do a reboot, right? So you got 30 patches, and it's going to take 3 reboots to get it done. You just select all those patches, your time window, and it will just patch, and then do the appropriate reboot, then continue to patch, and then do the further reboots until it's either completed or until you run out of time. And if it runs out of time, it will stop installing new updates. It won't reboot or do anything further. And of course, all of that is logged and easy to see. It's a streaming log, so you see it as it goes. And then when the job is all done, you can see that it's completed successfully. And I will just mention as a future feature, not very future either, I saw it today in a new version. We have a new layout for all the different job types where the logs are sort of unique by job type, and you can see the progress of every patch as it goes. It's much prettier than it is currently. It's functional today, but it could be better, and we want to give people the ability to quickly find the information they want and drill down in the ways that they want. So that's coming as well. So anyway, that's that in a nutshell.
Awesome, thanks, John. And yeah, that new patching UI is pretty slick. Kind of excited for that one.
Yeah, it's a good one.
All right, so that's the basis of kind of pushing out patching. We've got other things too. We can like grab patch history and we can see compliance, but I do want to see if we can cover most of the features here before the end of our session. So next up, let's go over file deployment and application installs. So we have a couple ways to do it in Bacon. We can either upload files directly to the repository. This is what I was referencing when I said, oh, when you upload files, everything has a URL. So we can use these to upload and then either push out directly to a machine, right? We could push this executable out, or we could use this executable or any number of files in one of our states. And so this is super simple. You can go through here and go to deploy and pick my OS. And I want to choose launcher so that Bacon knows to put this file on a machine and then double click it essentially. And so here I can pick my endpoints. And then I have the option of what user to run as and what kind of flags to give it. So that's a pretty simple, just, hey, I need to push out this exe, this script. And just like before, we have our different deployment times. Only difference is we don't have relentless mode for any kind of like file deployment. Now, if we have something a little bit more complex than the standard just single file installer, we can actually use a bundle feature. So this is kind of two-pronged approach. We're able to drop multiple files on a machine, and then we can also run one of those files. So here we could do like an Office package where we have our setup exe, we have a configuration XML. That's something you can actually edit in the product, which is pretty sweet. We have our own file browser in here, or file editor, I should say. And then we can push all those out to a machine, and it'll drop all those files on there and then install them. Now, the other side too is that if you're just doing single file installs, maybe you want to have a very consistent set of parameters you use. So you can include your MSI or your exe, your shell scripts, whatever you need, and then you can include an accompanying script with it to handle those parameters for you. So here I have a standard single file installer for Cortex XDR, and then we included a PowerShell script to install it. That way that, let's say, our help desk team or anybody else can push out this consistent bundle rather than having to remember the parameters. I'm very human, let's say. I make mistakes, I spell stuff wrong, so having things consistently in the system for me is it's a much better way for me to work, honestly. So aside from that, we also have managed packages. Here, we're actually hosting a service where we have a package repository. And like John was saying earlier, we're able to check on the latest version of software and then report back to this. And then your server, I think this one's configured to download it once a day. You can actually increase that frequency. but your server will download the latest metadata here and then also update the latest version of that software. So I could have the latest version of Chrome in here, right? All I'd have to do is go here, say, hey, I want to manage Chrome, and then it's going to put that in my file repository so I can push it out manually. Or we've added an extra feature. So for current Bacon customers who are familiar with writing states, we've made it super, super simple to install stuff. Here we're able to go to Actions and create state. So first we say manage, that's going to give us the file. Then we create a state, right? And that's Bacon's version of automation. And this is going to allow us to install or update that software with just like a single click. It'll make the state for me, and then I can push this out to my machines to install or update Microsoft Edge. Now, how we do that is over in profiles, we have our states and our profiles. States, again, are individual configs, stuff like, hey, set up Bluetooth this way. I want to install a piece of software. I think if I said Microsoft Edge in here, we'd see it like so. And we can either go to actions and to profile, right? That's going to let us put it in a profile to push out, or we can just include it as part of one of our standard profiles we've made, or make a new one. So here we can have profiles to, let's say, push out power settings or to set up the marketing team. It really is just a container you use to push out to machines. So that's basically how that works. And that's how we can easily keep software up to date with like little to no effort on your part, since it's all running through different automated processes. Now, once it's all pushed out, the last thing I'm going to take a look at just really quick is logs. So these logs allow us to go through and figure out exactly what happened. So here, actually, I can use this one. I was testing a state I was just kind of like reviewing, and this failed several times. I ran it a couple times, but I think it's important to show both a good outcome and also a less than favorable one, where here I was pushing something out and then it got like little errors in here back and forth. So all of our logging is very verbose. Whatever we can see from like the app side, we're going to send over to you so that you can understand, hey, the executable you ran had this error, or the script you ran had this error. And everything we do is logged, as John was saying too. So any kind of like patch jobs are logged, all the actions in the system are logged. And so it makes it a very complete experience where you're pushing something out. You don't have to cross your fingers. You'll know if it's done because we'll tell you. We'll tell you exactly what happened. We'll let you know, hey, we set your firewall rules, we set up your Bluetooth services, whatever kind of configs you're pushing, you'll be fully aware of if they did or did not work. You can kind of make the appropriate change from there. That's kind of like a really quick overview of Bacon. There's a lot more I can go into. We usually do this in like demos. If you have any questions, of course, please ask us. But John, before we kind of conclude here, anything else you wanted to add?
Let's see. I think probably since we're getting towards the end of time here, we want to leave time for people to finish the survey. I'll just give maybe a couple quick updates of short-term things that are coming. There was some great questions. There's actually one up there now. Someone's asking if we host locally or like an on-prem solution, or if it's a SaaS model. And the good news is it's both, and it's the same price now. So for anybody who is looking to host Bacon on their own, inside of their own four walls, as we say, you can put that in any infrastructure, VMware, Hyper-V, up in your AWS or Azure, Google Cloud. So it's a very, very easy thing to deploy. Or you can even put it on a physical server, although I haven't seen anyone do that recently. And the other kind of big things I just wanted to mention, someone had asked about consent. Do we have that in our remoting? It is not something we've historically had, but we are adding it right now, and it comes out at the end of February if all goes to plan. So I've seen the initial functioning of that, but it has to go through the finalization and all the testing, so we'll see how that goes. But yes, that feature will be there in addition to our already existing chat feature, where you can chat with someone before you log into their screen, just to be polite. So I've got lots of stuff going on inside of Bacon. The other things that we have coming down the pike here in not too long are some really great security enhancements. We already have very rich patching and third-party software patching, but we will also have CVE mapping. So basically any CVE that's listed in the NIST database, which is basically all of them, we will be able to match it to your operating systems on their exact versions and problems, and to all of your third-party software. And we'll also be able to map to the resolution, which is something that people have said that they really, really wanted. There's a few antivirus products out there that might tell you that you've got something on your machine that relates to a CVE, but doesn't really do a great job of helping you get to the finish line on fixing it. So we're going to be focusing on that here in the spring and preparing that for RSA, along with a more enhanced version of that, which is an integration with Tenable. So if anybody out there is using Tenable Nessus, we use it as well, the full edition with scanners and also agents. And with that, you'll be able to do a full integration, and where Tenable is the number one sort of viewer of security problems or scanner of problems, we're going to become the doer. So they're the seer, we're the doer. So really, really fun stuff coming on there. Also some more workflow capabilities for how patching happens to create even more automation. So we're really, really excited. This is going to be a very exciting spring for Bacon. But it's been a really exciting last couple of years as well. Tons of new capabilities in Bacon, more power than ever. So looking forward to catching up with you all on that. We'll give you the last few minutes here to fill out the survey, and thank you so much for joining us today.